Here are the top stories for today, January 14, 2021. The Food and Drug Administration granted an emergency use authorization to Pfizer for its COVID-19 vaccine. Quezon City and the Health Department is closely monitoring the first UK COVID-19 variant case in the country. More than 3,000 porn sites were blocked amid the intensified campaign against online sexual abuse. And suspected NPA rebel left her 2-month-old son to evade soldiers. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Former House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano said the newly formed political bloc called BTS aims to transform the institution from being the house of politics to the house of people. He said BTS stands for Back to Service in Congress, and it is not meant to offend the members of the popular K-pop band. He said the BTS would not engage in traditional politics, but focus on bringing legislative agenda guided by the organization's mantra, Bayanihan, Tapang at Serbisyo. Among the members of the group are Representatives Mike Defensor, Dan Fernandez, El Rey Villafuerte, Rani Abu, Jonathan Alvarado, Fred Castro, and Cayetano. The K-pop fans reportedly slammed the idea of using the name of their South Korean boy band, but Cayetano insisted that it created the BTS acronym when they crafted their slogan. The Food and Drug Administration has granted an emergency authorization use to Pfizer for its COVID-19 vaccine in the Philippines. FDA Director General Eric Domingo says after actual review by medical and regulatory experts, the FDA is granting an emergency use authorization to Pfizer's BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. Children below 16 years of age are not allowed to get the vaccine. Domingo, however, said the EUA cannot be used as an authorization to market the vaccine commercially. He said the EUA is not a marketing authorization or a certificate of product registration. President Rodrigo Duterte is hoping that the new strain of COVID-19 would not be more dangerous and toxic than the original variant. The Philippine Genome Center earlier confirmed the detection of the UK variant in the Philippines after samples from a Filipino who returned home from the United Arab Emirates yielded positive genome sequencing results. The male patient with the new strain of COVID-19 is a resident of Quezon City who flew to Dubai on December 27 for business purposes and arrived in the Philippines on January 7. The patient was with his partner who tested negative for COVID-19 upon arrival.
May bagong yung COVID na microbe, may sumakay ng iba. May bagong monster na naman. And I pray to God, really, na sana na hindi ito more dangerous, more toxic than the original COVID. Kaya mga bago ito, titignan ng mga experts, mga doctors, they will raise the alarm. So, importante ito kung sino yung mga tao na kinausap nila pagdating nila. That's very important. Sino-sino yung mga tao. Kaya lalabas itong tracing, iti-trace, hanapin yung mga tao, tapos i-examine sila for their own good. Na sabihin, adre, ka na nakausap mo yung na babae na may bagong strain, pati yung lalaki, magpa-examine ka lang, baka nahawa ka. So, yun ang gagawin nila ni Dr. Duque.
The Health Department says immediate contact tracing was done in close coordination with the Quezon City government to ensure that timely and effective measures are in place to mitigate transmission. Contact tracing of other passengers are also underway. The details from Marita Moahe.
The Department of Health and the Philippine Genome Center confirmed the detection of the B117 SARS-CoV-2 variant or UK variant in the country after samples from a Filipino who arrived from the United Arab Emirates yielded positive genome sequencing results. In a meeting with President Duterte and other government officials, Health Secretary Francisco Duque said the patient is a 29-year-old real estate agent from Barangay Camuning.
This was discovered or detected in a 29-year-old male residing in Camuning, Quezon City, with his girlfriend and parents. They departed for Dubai on December 27 for business purpose and accompanied by his girlfriend. At sila po ay sinuri at lumabas ang resulta doon na negative upon arrival in Dubai. At doon po sila sa Apartel sa Dubai, sila lang pong dalawa doon sa kanilang lugar sa Apartel. Nagkaroon po sila ng isang business meeting while in Dubai with another individual on December 30. They were reported to have visited malls, groceries, and tourist sites. Dumating po sila nito pong nakaraan January 7. Sinwab po sila at lumabas po na positive. At nirefer po sila kaagad sa isang Quezon City isolation facility na kung saan po in X-ray at ang findings ay meron pong pneumonia and currently under medication. Yun naman pong kanyang girlfriend ay tested negative. Pero ganun din po, kinuwarantin na rin po yung kanyang girlfriend. Both allegedly had no travel outside of Quezon City noong December or no known exposure to a confirmed case or a setting with known cases.
Meanwhile, the Quezon City Epidemiology and Surveillance Unit said it has conducted contact tracing on the male patient's close contacts upon his arrival. Among those who have had exposure to the patient are health workers at the isolation facility where he was brought and the Barangay Health Emergency Response Team that brought him from the hotel to the quarantine facility. Since January 8, he is staying at a facility where he remains up to this day for treatment. As an added precautionary measure, the patient's immediate household contacts have been brought to an isolation facility where they were also tested. Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte said they are doing everything they can to trace and isolate these individuals, knowing fully well that this variant is more contagious but not more virulent. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Moahe.
A vaccine expert says our antibodies will not be affected by the new COVID-19 variant and that the new vaccines are effective to combat the disease. The country's vaccine expert panel performs an evaluation of candidate COVID-19 vaccines with a scoring system before they enter the Food and Drug Administration. According to Dr. Nina Gloriani, head of the Vaccine Development Expert Panel, said vaccines are evaluated according to their safety, efficacy, immunogenicity, or its ability to produce an immune response and emergency use authorization.
Sa safety, marami pong parameters na titignan. May mild, moderate, severe reactions, local, systemic, may common reactions na expected sa mga bakuna o meron po mga rare events, titignan po natin lahat yun. Tapos yung efficacy, kung makakaprotekta nga po sa bawat isang bakuna na meron tayo ngayon, may track record po ba yung vaccine company? Kung may EUA na po sila sa ibang countries.
Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere also emphasized the importance of inoculating the majority of the Filipinos to achieve herd immunity.
Kailangan natin to immunize or to vaccinate about 60 to 70% of the population in order for the population to achieve herd immunity. Gusto ko lang hong i-emphasize, wala naman ho tayong bibili na bakuna para sa ating mga kababayan na hindi siya efficacious at hindi siya ligtas. Kaya nga po ginagamit po natin itong mga processes of regulation for us to assure the public that we will only procure safe and efficacious vaccines.
President Rodrigo Duterte allayed fears over China-made vaccines, insisting that the government would not allow their people to be inoculated with the vaccine if they were not safe, sure, and secure. He said vaccines developed by Chinese pharmaceutical companies are as good as those produced in the United States and in Europe. Malacanang earlier said China's Sinovac will be the only choice for the government's free immunization program until the middle of 2021. He also reminded the local government officials that the vaccines they will purchase will have to receive approval from the national government before given to their constituents.
Alam mo mga kababayan, we are about 110 million na Pilipino na obligasyon, it's an obligation imposed upon us, government, to take care of your citizens. Kung maaari lang i-vaccinate mo yung 110 plus Filipinos. The bakuna that Secretary Galvez is buying is as good as any other bakuna na naimbento ng mga Amerikano o mga Europeans. Hindi nagkulang ang Chinese. Hindi sila nagkulang sa otak. Bright itong in-check at they would not venture kung hindi sapat, it is not safe, sure, and secure. Itong Sinopharm pati Sinovac, nabakunahan na nila lahat halos ang kanilang, kaya normal na ang buhay nila ngayon. Kung ayaw ninyo, okay lang, walang problema. Kung kayong walang pera at gusto ninyo ng bakuna na mas maganda, mas mabisa, wala, tabla lahat yan. Pareho lang ang pinag-aralan nila.
Meanwhile, President Duterte thanked the private firms and businessmen who are helping the government in its COVID-19 pandemic response. Private pharmaceutical firms extend their assistance to the government by providing the needed cold chain storage facilities for the vaccines. They also entered into a tripartite agreement with the government and British pharmaceutical firm AstraZeneca for the procurement of 6 million doses of vaccines. Half of these would be donated to the government, while the other half would be given to private employees. National Policy Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said the country's efforts on vaccine acquisition are not lacking. This as the government signed another tripartite agreement with the British-Swedish pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca and the private sector for the procurement of 20 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. According to Secretary Galvez, the government could secure about 148 million doses of vaccines once the ongoing negotiations with 6 COVID-19 vaccine developers push through. The government is also in talks with various pharmaceutical companies including AstraZeneca, Novavax, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Sinovac, and Gamaleya Institute. Galvez clarified issues hounding the government's supposed monopoly over purchase negotiations for coronavirus vaccines. He said the government has done various strategies to get access for the procurement of COVID-19 vaccines, which include bilateral arrangements with vaccine manufacturers and pursuing diplomatic relations with other countries. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. cautioned the public on the prices of vaccines circulating online and in many publications. Galvez said it is not the same as the government's negotiated prices, as prices under the COVAX facility are almost 300% lower than the market prices. He said the price list of vaccines cannot be disclosed since negotiations are bounded by a confidentiality agreement. He also adds that all coronavirus vaccines procured by the government will undergo stringent evaluation and selection process of the Food and Drug Administration to ensure their safety and efficacy. Still to come, Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo says anti-hunger campaign should focus on the homeless. Meanwhile, more porn sites were blocked amid the intensified campaign against online sexual abuse. More on this when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Sa matinding laban natin sa Coronavirus Disease 2019, sugpuin din natin ang pagkalat ng fake news. Huwag magbahagi ng impormasyon na hindi tiyak ang pinagmulan. I-check mabuti ang source ng balita. Kumuha lamang ng impormasyon mula sa mga official channel ng Department of Health. Huwag magpadala sa maling balita, basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The government can only achieve zero hunger in the country by 2030 if it is able to address the needs of homeless families. Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo made the remarks as he admitted that it is heartbreaking to see homeless people struggling to survive. This as a social weather station survey last year found that an estimated 7.6 million families experienced hunger during the COVID-19 pandemic. Panelo said homeless people should be prioritized as the government scaled up its drive to achieve its zero hunger goal. In January last year, President Rodrigo Duterte signed Executive Order 101, creating the Interagency Task Force on Zero Hunger that formulates the government's anti-hunger policies. The IATF-ZH launched the National Food Policy to highlight its virtual first anniversary.
Alam niyo, pag ako'y umiikot talaga, hanggang ngayon, kumikirot ang puso ko pag nakikita ko talagang maraming pulubi, namumulubi, may mga hawak na baby. Hindi ko talaga maintindihan whether it's the national government or the local government units, hindi ko maintindihan bakit hindi nila kinukuha yon. For as long as they're there, wala. Hindi tayo successful sa ating pamamahala, whether it's local or national.
About 3,000 websites that host illicit content involving children have so far been blocked by PLDT and its wireless subsidiary Smart Telecom. PLDT-Smart said the blocked websites were based on the mandate to protect Filipino netizens from online sexual abuse and exploitation of children. Angel Redoble, Chief Information Security Officer of the ePLDT Group, said the PLDT Group is seeking membership with a UK-based Internet Watch Foundation, which will provide the company with access to a database of web pages linked to child sexual abuse. The PLDT Group has also rolled out its own child safeguarding policy made in partnership with UNICEF. It said Smart is also expanding its support to community-based programs with the aim of eliminating online sexual abuse in the country. Several provinces have committed to buy COVID-19 vaccines for their constituents, saying they have signed their respective deals to get their share of the vaccine later this year. More on this from Chris Mundo.
The city of Bacolod has closed the deal for the purchase of 650,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine from AstraZeneca. Mayor Evelio Leonardia, also the national president of the League of Cities of the Philippines, announced the deal on Wednesday, calling it a giant leap towards realizing the city's vaccination goals. The city is starting with the preparation of 300 million pesos for the vaccines. Meanwhile, the Zamboanga City Health Office is eyeing to vaccinate at least 70% of the population against COVID-19, with frontline workers and vulnerable groups as priority. Mayor Maria Isabel Climaco Salazar signed Monday a multilateral agreement with AstraZeneca to supply 410,000 doses of vaccines worth 100 million pesos. City Health Officer Dr. Dulce Amor Miravites said the vaccines would be most likely available sometime in the third quarter of this year. The city's vaccination program would cover over 690,000 residents, or 70% of its projected 2021 population, to achieve herd immunity. In Antique, the provincial government is eyeing to procure COVID-19 vaccines for its healthcare workers and residents this June. Governor Rodora Cadiao said the province has already pulled 31.5 million pesos for the purchase of the doses. Cadiao said Antique has to be ready to provide the vaccine for its own residents in anticipation that the national government might prioritize areas with a high number of COVID-19 cases. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Crismundo.
In our business news, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Benjamin Diokno is looking at further boosting the central bank's delivery of its mandate once it opens a facility in Central Luzon. The BSP signed the lease contract for 50 years with the Basis Conversion and Development Authority on Wednesday. Diokno said the facility will be built within the new Clark City National Government Administrative Center in Capas, Tarlac. The facility will include a new plant complex for the production and distribution of currency and the printing of the national identification cards and land title certificates. Diokno said the signing of the lease contract allows central bank authorities to procure the design and the eventual construction of the eco-friendly facilities. To date, the BSP's currency printing and minting facility is in its security plant complex along East Avenue in Quezon City. Up next, a suspected NPA rebel left her 2-month-old son to evade soldiers. And Cebu City Mayor says he is willing to get vaccinated with Sinovac. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
A 2-month-old baby boy was abandoned by his mother, a New People's Army rebel, and left in the house of a villager in Talisay City, Negros Occidental. The woman, identified as Ka Jandi, left with her comrade Ka Maneth to evade troops patrolling in Hacienda Ambulog, Barangay San Fernando. The troops came to the house of Juan Marilyn Dianton and found the baby. The infant is now in the care of the city's Social Welfare and Development Office. The soldiers also recovered subversive documents, medical supplies, infants' clothes, and other baby stuff, as well as food items and mobile phones. Lieutenant Colonel Gerard Alvaran of the 79th Infantry Battalion expressed sadness that Kajandi's baby was abandoned for a senseless cause. He also urged Kajandi and her comrades to lay down their arms and abandon the armed struggle. Mayor Edgardo Labella said he is willing to be among the first Cebuanos to be inoculated with Sinovac once the vaccine becomes available. Labella says he has no problem with getting the vaccine if only to show that it is effective. He, however, clarified that the people should not be forced to get the Chinese vaccine if they do not want it. Those who want to be vaccinated with the ones from Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Moderna, and others produced in different countries should, however, wait for their availability. Labella said the city government is now waiting for the approval of the national government before they can finalize the purchase of COVID-19 vaccines. The city allocated 400 million pesos for the vaccine purchases. And in our foreign news, the United States will require all passengers traveling to the country on international flights to test negative for COVID-19 starting January 26. In a statement, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said passengers are required to get a viral test within 3 days before their flight to the U.S. departs. Airlines must also confirm the negative test result for all passengers and deny boarding to those who could not provide documentation of a negative test result. The CDC said the testing requirement for air passengers will help slow the spread of the virus and make travel safer from COVID-19 and its variants. As of late Tuesday, the United States had more than 22.7 million coronavirus cases and nearly 380,000 deaths. And in sports, Raul Soyud of the NLEX Road Warriors have been nominated for the PBA's award for Most Improved Player. Soyud became one of the key players of NLEX in their late run to the playoffs, averaging 10 points, highlighted by a career-high 27, 6.8 rebounds, and 1.1 assists per game last season. NLEX coach Yang Giao says Soyud deserves the nomination because he persevered to become a better player. Soyud first started for West Negros University. Seeing his potentials, the University of the Philippines then secured Soyud's transfer, later ending up as a third-round pick in the 2014 PBA draft. The MIP award will be handed out alongside some other special citations in the PBA's virtual Special Awards Night on Sunday. Iloilo City will soon have its human milk bank to support women and children in need of breast milk. The Sangguniang Panlunsod on Tuesday approved the Human Milk Bank of Iloilo City Ordinance. Councilor Candice Magdalene Tupas shared the importance of the ordinance was passed at this time of pandemic. She noted that breast milk boosts the immunity of children against viruses, including COVID-19. The Human Milk Bank will be hooked with the City Health Office or in the pediatric unit of the proposed Iloilo City Hospital. Once the city's Human Milk Bank is operational, it will initially cater to inpatients of the city hospital, but will soon be made available to other hospitals. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. The Food and Drug Administration granted an emergency use authorization to Pfizer for its COVID-19 vaccine. Quezon City and the Health Department is closely monitoring the first UK COVID-19 variant case in the country. More than 3,000 porn sites were blocked amid the intensified campaign against online sexual abuse. And suspected NPA rebel left her 2-month-old son to evade soldiers. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day.